That's a terrific message from our Chief Medical Officer, and again highlights the progress that has been made and is going to be made, particularly through the CDC. We acknowledge colleagues looking forward to dropping the I from the acronym, Alison Roy and her team that have been doing tremendous work in this space, and looking forward to that release of the more public-facing guidance of practical action and measures. Now, moving through the program, I'm now going to introduce Glen Ramos to speak. Glen has over 30 years of experience in healthcare policy and advocacy as a senior executive and director. This includes initiating, influencing and instituting public inquiries, judicial inquiries, legislative changes at the state and Commonwealth levels, resulting in policy change improvements to injury and communicable disease prevention, access to mental health services and access to specialist medical services. He's Director of the Australian Health Promotion Association and National Counsellor of the Australian Epidemiological Association. He's going to speak today about some experiences. Thank you, Glen.
Thank you for that. Let me just get my screen ready. I've actually been upgraded since my bio was provided. I'm not that I'm speaking in those capacities, but I'm actually the President of the Australian Health Promotion Association now, and also the Vice President of the Australasian Epidemiological Association. I have a whole range of other hats that I do wear, but I'm the patient advocate hat today. And part of my story will explain why that's the case. Thank you, Plum, Amy, the team here at the Safer Air Project for putting this together. These types of events, and you in particular, are making a difference in this space. The various roles, positions, titles that I have and many people here have got me thinking about how presentations and speeches commence. Usually there's an acknowledgement of the audience in some hierarchical way. I'm sure you've seen this in many times, many ways. Certain people are acknowledged in different priorities, different hierarchies. There's actually a protocol. If you look this up, there's actually a protocol for how you do this and how you do it appropriately. Depending on your role and status, you'll be acknowledged before certain others and so forth. It's quite detailed and differentiates people. Do you know what doesn't differentiate? Indoor air quality. It's the great equaliser. So in that vein, I'll simply say, good morning all. When I was asked to present at this conference, it's actually one of the first times in quite a long time where I thought, oh shit. Not because I haven't presented in front of an audience before. I've lost count of how many times I've presented over the past 30 years. I tried to tally it the other day, but just for the purpose of this event, but like I said, I've lost count. So I can certainly tell you that my feelings about being here were not related to some sort of performance anxiety issues. No. The oh shit moment was because I hadn't presented in person at an indoor venue for about 5 years. So this is the first time I've been in front of an audience in the flesh talking about something indoors. And you know what that timeline aligns with? Let me guess. Anyone? It's the Voldemort of diseases, the one whose name must not be spoken. It's COVID-19. And my personal hiatus from presenting was not because I was particularly unwell during that time, and I'll get to that part shortly. It's rather because I actually wanted to remain well. I wanted to stay in my current state of health. And to be able to remain in the current state of health meant that I had to avoid many, many, many things that I used to do, and I no longer do, either because those things are incredibly high risk, or I need to put in place so many precautions that in order to participate, it's just all too damn hard. Plum gave some examples of early with her kids. I've got my own young kids. It's an absolute nightmare for people who have serious health conditions. And as you can see, the only reason I agreed to participate here at the moment was lots of wonderful technology. I trust Plum because we've crossed paths before through the rare cancers link there, and I'll get to that in a moment. And plus, Parliament House has great indoor air quality. We are blessed to be in this place where our politicians are benefiting greatly from these wonderful technologies which haven't yet trickled down to us. So let me give you some context. That's a little bit of a story about myself. When I was a bit younger, hopefully not, I don't think I'm that old now, although maybe the grey hairs belie that a little, I'd never given much thought to how powerful words can be. Maybe it's a youth thing. But it's incredible how 3 simple words can have a life-changing impact. To give you an example of some of these, I love you. That's potentially some great life-changing words. I'm pregnant. That'll turn your world upside down very quickly in one of those kids. I'm sorry. Those can be wonderfully redemptive words. How about this one? You have cancer. And those were the words that I heard a couple of weeks after my 30th birthday. And that changed my life dramatically. For one, I'd officially become a statistic. I was now the one in one of 2 males that develops cancer in their lifetime. I was one of the 169,000 people who get newly diagnosed with cancer every year. And I was at high risk of becoming one of the 1,013 people estimated to die from cancer every week in Australia. My life had changed. Specifically, I was diagnosed with a rare cancer called medullary thyroid carcinoma. It's one of the 4 types of thyroid cancers. It's the second nastiest one, which is kind of lucky. And if it's diagnosed early, it's essentially completely treatable. Unfortunately, I was not diagnosed early. It doesn't respond to radiotherapy, doesn't respond to chemotherapy, primarily responds to the scalpel. By the time I was diagnosed, the cancer spread from my thyroid throughout the neck, into the chest. It was all over the place. And I'm not joking when I tell you that I literally had to put on sunglasses when I was viewing the scans that I had taken, because I was lit up like a Christmas tree. That was another one of my oh shit moments. Although the exact words might have been, oh, far out. Well, that's the PG rated version anyway. I'm sure you can translate. I was basically at stage 4, adios. And I don't need to go into all the details of surgeries, of the treatments and various things that I've done over the years. That's neither here nor there. Although as a point of interest, I once did take a tape measure and measured out all my surgical scars, and I'm happy to report they collectively came over to just over 1 metre. So I guess that's some sort of interesting trophy. But I'm here today. And that was 20 years ago. Do the maths. But just to be clear, I'm not cured. I'm not in remission. I still have cancer. I've got more tumours than you can poke a stick at. As a result of this persistent state for 2 decades, I've done the absolute utmost I can to remain as healthy as possible. I've been married since then, divorced, had kids, lived the whole life during that time. In addition to that, I also have had some serious heart conditions and a range of other health issues. That's another topic for another day. What's the point that I'm trying to make here? It's not that my tale of woe is any different to others. There's lots of people with similar type of tales and many with worse. And I'm quite lucky that I've been able to live my life in a reasonably unencumbered way. And I'm happy to report that although my health issues have been and are quite serious, they didn't have a major effect on the basic life activities. Going to work, shopping, kids at school, meeting with family, friends, work colleagues, doing what we think everybody would normally do. But that was before COVID. As we know, acute long COVID powers immunological dysregulation, neurological disorders, cardiovascular issues, injuries, and my particular health condition puts me and many others at an elevated risk of serious negative health consequences. So when it became patently obvious, to some, not all, and even some still persist, that COVID was actually spread by aerosols, that changed everything again for me. Because the environments in which most of life takes place, inside, were now potentially high-risk activities. For people at risk, those with disabilities, the immunocompromised, the chronically ill, the elderly, and just simply many others who are seeking to avoid additional health burdens, COVID and other respiratory diseases. And if you didn't know, influenza B is out of control at the moment. It's literally wild. Not having safe indoor air effectively banishes people like me from society. That's just the bottom line. So without serious action, and by serious I don't mean just announcing things, there's always announcements. They need to be followed up, they need to be pursued, they need to be implemented. So without serious action on this, any essential service which is indoors, such as taking public transport, attending shopping centres, doctor's appointments, it simply becomes a high-risk activity. And it forces people into a shadow lockdown of sorts. So now knowing what we need to do about indoor air quality to make safe spaces, it's absolutely critical that we do this. Because in not doing so, what we are doing for people who are at high risk is simply creating and transferring emotional, psychological and physical trauma to the most disadvantaged, and these people are already under enormous burdens. And for what? To simply pretend it's 2019? The other point I'd like to make is excluding the most vulnerable from participating in society is a moral judgment on their worth. One that's primarily based on economics and essentially assesses people with these issues as somehow inconsequential. And whilst this perception may have previously been hidden, current policies in public health have made it glaringly obvious. Inaction on indoor air quality is the icing on that unwanted cake. And whilst policy inaction prevails, we simply accept wave and wave of preventable respiratory diseases, wherein the most vulnerable are the ones who are washed away. So, in my opinion, it'd serve those making public health policy well to remember that health equity requires attention to privileging the needs and concerns of those most at risk from the current structures and policies. And that means taking action to improve indoor air quality and making our indoor spaces safer for everyone. Thank you.